So welcome to BITPodium, and we are now today recording episode 5. And as always, there is a nice little crew behind there. And let's start from the left, hangout way. So, Sean, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
And how's life with Sean?
Sorry?
How is life with Sean?
Life is pretty good. I just got back from a traveling training trip in Frankfurt, Germany. So I get some good chance to meet some people and learn some different things from different angles and perspectives.
And then, of course, we have the beautiful and always charming Simone Jomore. How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you very much. Wow, some new exciting stuff for me just coming up now. Just had the flight confirmations today, and I'm off to the desert for the next few weeks, Abu Dhabi and Muscat, and might be off to the desert, but I tell you what an amazing looking resort this is going to be for an experience. We all know that the HDI portfolio, Knowledge Centered Support KCS, has raised its perspective after the Axelos HDI paper about the synergies there. But they now have also a new role course out as the problem management professional, which kind of links with our topic today. And, it has run a few times, but this will be my first one I'm running. And very excited indeed because after, going through all the course materials and exercises, again, you see the synergies across all the frameworks because it talks about the whole, governance and COBIT and all sorts of things mixed in there, as well, of course, all the root cause analysis techniques and bits and pieces. So I think that might be something that'll come up in our conversations.
Yeah, we're expecting a full report on your trip for the next episode. So let's see if we can reserve 20 minutes for that.
Well, I might be able to do it from poolside in the desert, who knows? At least have a palm tree around me or something.
And hopefully a beverage of choice in hand. That's fantastic.
Yes, I can imagine. Actually, you know what one of my favorites is watermelon juice. Iced watermelon juice. And I'm just thinking a large glass of that with some of those beautiful dates that come from that area. That would just be divine.
Very cool.
Also, keep your cameras with you so we can do some shots. And from my side, it's just work. We have go live here in 2 weeks, so it's just stressing down, and we are pushing the user acceptance test for next week. So it's just crazy as always. But then, so hopefully after the next episode, I'm either totally worn out or fresh.
So if you've got user acceptance testing, are you prepared for what's going to come with the topic as well?
Yeah, and for all the audience, you can find all our previous episodes on bitpodium.com. And there you can also go in and provide us with feedback or put in if you have any questions or just share some good love, praise. And I think it's a good time to just actually jump into our today's topic, where we try to figure out how we actually do strategies and find some kind of route during war and chaos. I was actually thinking about the concept maybe first that in IT there is a very common to have some kind of major incident routine. I don't think this is very unique at all for IT, because major incidents actually appear in a number of different business areas as well. But what I would like to know is that what does major incidents actually mean to you? So, Sean, starting off with you.
And I have to go back and look up the definition from I don't want to get the wrong quote, but to me, a major incident is anything to which the impact affects the business in such a grand way that it needs all hands on deck, or all hands paying attention to it. Though, of course, I'd love to have a team of people specifically equipped to handle it. Everybody needs to pay attention because it's business impact-wide, or business-wide impact.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add there, Simone?
Oh, I think from my perspective, I mean, I guess coming from health and safety, coming from the military and things like that, I mean, the definitions are basically, you know, you hear the sirens go off, you know, the blue light starts going crazy. Anything that's a really significant event, you know, it demands a huge response, whether it's just from, you know, 2 or 3 particular key individuals, or, as Sean said, all hands on deck. The 3 most common military expressions, or famous last words, are, "Did you feel that?" Or, "What was that noise?" And then there's, "Gosh." Yeah. So, you know, what are the alert systems to tell you that, is this just a normal thing, or is this something really big?
From what I have seen, at least from working with different kinds of businesses, or everything from, as you say, health. I was actually working for like the or the Danish SOS, where you actually have all the calls and you redirect the different, like the firefighters, the ambulance, or whatever, where the IT came very close to the actual emergencies. And then you have also, of course, the incidents that happens only within isolated IT. So if you have, or you're a managed service provider, for instance, and as Sean said, I mean, in most of the cases, it's all about having a routine of having everyone, or giving people mandate to pull out people, or the right people and the right skills, to actually try to or minimize the impact of a certain occurrence.
I think there's some great case studies out there. You know, it was something I remember back, well, it's still very fresh in my memory, maybe because it's so close to home and I know people that are involved. And we did talk about it on one of the BITPodium podcasts, and that was when New Zealand had the earthquakes. And the IT department of the council was actually moved into the library building. Now, imagine it's council and it's part of emergency and local services. So you can imagine these guys were really under the pump to keep communications rolling, you know, keep all of those ties together for all the different, you know, departments and things that were involved in dealing with what was a pretty major crisis. And then on the other end of the scale, I don't know, I think sometimes people don't really think about, they say, oh, so the mobile phones aren't working for a little while, what big deal? But, you know, that crisis in itself, and the same with any other around the world that has happened to any other city, the social media links, the telephone links, that's what kept people being able to communicate and be clear about what was going on, how big is this, who needs to be there, what do we need. And then there's all the personal messages that go out. One company, they had one link, their major mobile phone link between Australia and the Philippines. And I can tell you that that business, it wasn't just the IT department, the business itself, because it was a telco company, all hands were on deck if that link ever went down.
And I think we have a similar situation here in Sweden recently. We had a huge fire, so it's not the flooding we had. Before the flooding we had a fire, so it's a strange country to live in. But we had a huge fire, actually with the size of Stockholm more or less. So it was spreading quite rapidly because of wind. It was dry, so. That was also one of the things they got most yeah, or actually was most criticized in the news, at least, actually, is the lack of communication, especially on the level it started out as a communication from the municipality office because it was local, but it spread to be regional and then became actually a country-wise business. So therefore you escalate, and then you of course have other routines to kick in because it goes from local to like federal to, I mean, country, and we actually had planes from Denmark and from France and from Italy. I think they came out to do the water bonding, and I think that is something that is very often missed, is that you have a protocol to follow locally when things happen within your own department or your own area, but then it escalates. And then suddenly you need to merge the corporate policies with your department policies or whatever. And I think there is no really link between the escalation routines. Or you do the other way around, that you have a corporate policy, and the corporate policy is actually driving all the escalations.
You know, something that was interesting about one element that I saw both of you talking about in either of those examples. In both of your examples, you talked about people kind of leaving from what their traditional role was and leaping into something else. So it's almost like, you know, it's a major incident when the marketing guy is going to bail water out, and when the IT guy is running upstairs to go do, when it's a case where everybody almost like abandons their business set role to go leap and do, then it's pretty clear to everybody that it's become major.
And I think that's that's a key part of it. To use another really simple example would be the kids at school, primary school, or the lower, the initial schooling, the kindergartens and things like that. I mean, most of the parents, like, they'll have some kind of call tree, the neighborhood call tree kind of thing. And it's, something's gone wrong with the kids, or something's happened where the parent can't do something. And they do have this emergency call tree. And it's a really simple thing. And they just have this picture of a tree with the names on it. And, once a month they meet up and make sure that they all have their, if mobile phone numbers have changed or not, and who is going to be the facilitator that month if there is an emergency amongst the neighbourhood, or amongst the kids in the neighbourhood.
So it's almost like when those people start fleeing their original jobs or intended jobs, it helps to have that plan for them to go run to. Like, I know something has to stop, so I have to stop what I'm doing. But then that's the perfect time to have exactly what Daniel was talking about, something for them. Because when the marketing team comes running in and goes, this is clearly big, what do we do? That's when you hand them follow these rules, follow this tree, go do these 9.
But do we have to wait for the emergency for them to know this? That's the other key point. I mean, one of my key, I don't know what it is with you guys, but as a consultant and trainer that's coming into organizations that you're not normally a part of that physical environment, I had to write the email the other day, what are some of the requirements I have coming to this venue? And I said, well, I need all the location details, and part of those location details, not just phone, who's the liaison person, who is the contact person, and mobile number, please. An email address and a landline is not going to cut it in that situation, so a mobile number.
Right.
The second thing will be, what are the emergency procedures, both fire, evacuation, first aid procedures. It's funny, there might be simple things, but if I have someone trip over a cord in a classroom and they break a bone or gash their head, that to me is that's a major incident. This person could have been very badly hurt or God knows what. So you have to have this up front. You go to hotel rooms, you look at do you two actually look at the emergency plan on the back? I mean, seriously, do you?
As soon as you said that was the first thing I thought of, was the back of my hotel room has that little poster. And I see it and I'm like, oh, I should pay attention to this, but.
Oh, Sean, I'm disgusted. How could you not know? That's terrible. I'd be devastated if we lost you. You better damn look at it next time.
It's the next one. You can guarantee I will be reminded to stare at it.
And actually open your door and know which way is north, south, east, and west. So you know if when you're in a panic or you're stuffed up with smoke, are you going to be turning left or right?
Well, and it's funny, we all do that at an airplane, right? I always, even if I don't listen to this to the speech because I've heard it so many times, I always make a point to pull out the sheet and ask, am I running forward or backward? And that's the part, like I check those things.
And have you counted the rows to the exit?
I do. Don't tell anyone.
So why don't you do it in the hotel? What, you think that magically because it's a physical building and it's not going to drop out of the air, it can't drop out of the air?
That's a great point. Have you guys ever, well, and I guess my question to you is, how often have you ever been in a situation where you've walked into someone else's emergency and you just know because the details for the emergency are always there? I went to a site I've been to several sites where you get on board and they're having a fire drill. And it's just a drill. But the fact that you're not there, you don't know where the stuff is to find it. Your hotel analogy is great because it doesn't matter where in the world I go. I know where I should look. So that's probably something to check.
And the other one too is in the buildings when you walk in, is a lot of them will have the red hat or the yellow hat on someone's desk. Have you seen that when you've walked into? Yeah, that will be the fire warden or the communications warden or.
Yeah, I know in some offices at least they have one of those yellow or orange jackets that's actually hanging by their desk.
Yeah, now so that I've seen. I've not seen the hats, but I see the jacket. Yeah. And I've seen those on sites. Yeah.
So a jacket or a hat or some kind of representation that's a large visual thing. So as soon as you pop your head up over that desk, you orientated that's the object you're looking for to go to. So I think that's pretty important to have.
So it's an interesting to do from this, though, that if you could say for your organization in terms of a major context, if you could create such a simple plan but such a clear plan that even a stranger would instantly, if they happen to walk in, would know where to look, then you've kind of reached Mecca for that goal.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's not just about, we're talking about fires, floods, health, sickness, emergencies, those types of things. I think that's an easy topic to pick on when you talk about major incidents, air crash investigations and this, that, and the other. But what about if the business considered it a financial crisis? I wonder how many people would give it the same, it would have the same impetus in getting people moving.
Well, I guess there is a similar, major incident kind of policy also on a corporate manager level. So if you have a number of things happening that could affect your, credibility or hurt the brand or whatever, there should probably be also a number of persons that is on a list or is on the communication that is drawn into an emergency meeting or whatever. I think that at least that's my guess that I have some kind of protocol for that.
Oh, Sean, there you go. The marketing guy would be involved in that. Marketing and PR. If they were going to have some kind of branding or financial crisis, that marketing PR guy and his team will have a big role to play.
Right, and they'll know just where to go. But I guess in that case, it's the same idea, only flipped, right? The marketing person would know right where to go for that kind of crisis, and they would know who to talk to. But with the person in the IT department, and to Daniel's point, the bigger question is if we could create for the other maybe types of major things that would happen, such a clear set of directions that's simple, followable, and that even a stranger would know where to go to find it. If it's critical, this is what I look for.
Then I would like to turn this question around. We say now we have all hands on deck, everyone who knows we are running at the same goal, but at what point do we make it clear that you are actually hurting the process more than helping. So if there is a plane crash and people run there and they get hurt themselves because they burn and they, yeah, so how do we make sure that we gather the right skills and competences, the right people, but avoid having the ones that are not putting any additional value to our to solving whatever we are in?
You mentioned something while we were chatting about people's intrinsic personality.
Yeah, I find this, I always think in terms of the difference, to me, the difference between incident and problem is some people you want on the fire right there. They handle crisis very well. I make no bones about the fact I'm not that guy. In fact, I'm the guy who tends to, you heap too much stress on me, and all of my little mental circuits get short, and I just simply shut down and go, I don't know, I'm going to go over here. Give me a bag to carry and I'll do that, or something simple to do, and that's great.
Or are you the person we tap on the shoulder, put something in your hand and say, go over there?
Yes, I'm that guy. That's exactly. And we think of that in the classic the classic old-time baby scenario, right? When a baby's being born, they say, go get hot water, because it's simple, I can go handle that. But you probably don't want me making big calls. But some of those people who are good strategists are not the people you want in an incident. But as Daniel said, I wonder if the people who are just born firefighters, if there are no fires for them, will they take something that's a normal incident and kind of conflagrate it up into an incident? Will they, if your tendency is such that that's what you thrive on, is that adrenaline of the right now, things have to get done, make a decision, and there isn't anything for you, will you take something that's maybe less than critical and make it critical?
So
and have you ever run into that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're equating that to a pyromaniac, someone that just can't help themselves. It's just such a natural condition for them. They have to create a fire because it's exciting and wow, look at this. And yes, there's all the other psychology that goes with that. But do you think for some of these people, it's also, I think there's a combination where yes, they enjoy the challenge maybe of those things, and if they don't exist, how can maybe they create it subconsciously?
Yeah, I don't think it's on purpose.
No, but I also think maybe it's this part of that hero mentality, because they love rescuing.
Yeah, I think you have a point there, because it's like when you have like a number of things like priority 1 to 5. When all the priority 1 things are closed and solved, are you then moving priority 2 things as priority 1?
Yeah, I wonder that a lot, and how I wonder exactly that, and how often the people who have that tendency want to make things that are priority 2s or even 3s into 1s, because there aren't enough 1s to keep them kind of going. And I think it's just as important for keeping the people like me who need to go get hot water or here, hold this bag, to keep them out of trouble. Maybe those people who tend to be firers or fire pyromaniacs, as you called it, to keep the same kind of eye on them to make sure they're not accidentally or subconsciously, blowing on things that might be, little fires and making them bigger.
It's a really, thinking back from the strategic perspective, or even the tactical perspective, this is a very worrying situation, and we know that it does happen out there. There's the big picture of the business continuity planning, the big stuff that we were talking about. I'm just wondering how clear a business is, not just, so IT is only one part of a whole business, and I think sometimes people forget that. But do they have a combat team actually nominated and ready? That has the right key personnel from each department that will bring law and order, if you like. But prior to that, part of business continuity planning is, let's have a look at the historical data. Are they actually watching the right KPIs? Are they watching the right metrics to assess if there is a brewing situation so they can actually prevent any major incidents.
I have a very good friend who's working as an ambulance driver, and they in Sweden at least they have something called RETS. It's a shortage for Rapid Emergency Triage and Treatment System. So it's a document more or less that have a number of inputs, and you put them into a scale, and then you get some kind of risk level out of that one. So it could be red, whatever, and that's actually reworked every year. So it's a yearly review based on the happenings during the last year. So it's updated all the time. And I think what's interesting of this is that it's actually done several times. So you do first when you come out to the patient, the ambulance is or the personnel or nurses from the ambulance is actually doing the first triage, because they make a judgment. Okay, what kind of situation do we have, and what kind of treatment should I initiate? What kind of information do I need to send to the hospital? Because that's communicated. Then they have another triage when they actually come into the emergency as well, to redo that work, because it could be that the judgment is of course based on knowledge and experience, and so there you have this kind of that at least it's helping you. I mean, it's not accurate all the time, but it helps you. Like, have you checked the breathing? Have you checked the pulse? How is the oxygen in the blood? Okay, we make a lot of these visual ones, and then we do some blood tests, and then we can make a judgment, and then we know, okay, we need to call I don't know, physician, we need to call the medical, we need to call, well, bring in the needed people in relations to that system judgment. So I think that's.
It reminds me of some of those movies that you see, like Armageddon, and with Bruce Willis, or you see them all trying to madly get out of those LA freeways, because they've all got to evacuate or something. Yeah. Look, quite frankly, General George S. Patton said this once. He said, "No combat-ready unit has ever passed inspection." So my question is, do you need to be ready as such? Because he said a good battle plan that you can act on today can actually be better than a perfect one tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
that makes a ton of sense.
Do we need to be ready? I mean, how ready do we have to be?
Well, and sadly enough, to that point, some of what Daniel, I think, was bringing up is that people who are ready, some of that simply relies on experience. And some of those people who know how to respond only do because they've been in those, they have some of that experience that maybe a new person won't. And Daniel, we had, again, before we had talked a little bit about both of us having experience with new people brought in. And I guess the question is, are they the people that you'd want to put on a combat-ready team or an emergency-ready team based on the fact that they don't maybe have that kind of experience? Like, is this experience the differentiator there?
Yeah, but I haven't been to war, fortunately, but I can imagine. I mean, when you do your training, especially for, like, times it's at World War II or World War I, when you had your training at camp, you get nervous because you're moved to the front, but still, I mean, just marching up and down the square is not really training enough, because it's actually what kind of skill, even if you're a sharpshooter #1, but when you're lying there under heavy fire, how would you actually react? And that's of course the way you have those senior people that is helping you to helping these people that are not able to handle situations.
Well, it's being a funny situation, considering I was actually trained to fire. Sometimes this Field Marshal Slim once said, "Nothing is so good for the morale of the troops as to occasionally see a dead general." sometimes I wonder, because of the training that you actually do receive, it becomes it's almost like becoming an automaton. You know, what you actually want is you want it to become a non-thinking skill, as in, I know exactly how this weapon works, I know exactly how it's going to fire, I can pull it apart in the dark and put it back together in X seconds, you know the shape and the feel of the bullet, like, you know what I mean, like you know your equipment. Now this is my point. You know your equipment, you know your tools, all the, you know, this drilling you talk about, marching around a square, it does have some impact, even though it might not seem that, but it becomes one of those things that it becomes a skill you don't have to think about in terms of, then that leaves space in your brain to actually make the bigger decisions, if that makes sense. Because those things are, it's like being able to, that's really a inane example, I think, touch type. Once you know how to touch type, you never have to think twice about it again, except if you have a keyboard that's in a different language.
Right.
You know what I mean? But let's bring it back to, okay, in a business sense, I mean, you still have to have some kind of team that's ready. You know, again, if it was a financial crisis, I mean, look at GFC or those sorts of things. What do businesses do during GFC to handle major incidents according to that business's, what it values and its livelihood?
Yeah, isn't it also so that as you said now, I mean, we can do training, so we can do, I mean, we can do this, I don't know, major incident drills. We can do our disaster recovery trainings, and that's fine. So we as you say, we clear up, people know their role in a certain situation, so that's good. But I think still, I mean, how you are supposed to react is of course depending on situation. So I guess that even it's harder if you go, as you say, in financial situations where it's really, really hard to predict the type of incident coming up. I guess that I mean, you might be there as a known factor because you have seen other companies have that situation, but how do you actually do training on going into finance collapse or whatever?
Again, okay. Look at the past.
Well, and in this one, I always get interested because it seems to me the bridge between, you know, the real experience and there's no way to test that except go through training is simulation. And then simulation having really two different ways to do it. One, you can make the simulation so realistic that you can kind of start to assess whether a person's going to fit in that crisis or not. Or you can make the simulation real enough to create enough stress to simulate some of the pressure, but offer them the flexibility to try different things. Because, you know, whether we do this in airplanes or financial simulators, like in G2, G3 kinds of things, where they don't really lose, you don't lose $18 million, you know, your company quote unquote fails. But it's practice to have that without actually having the real consequences. But
you know what,
it was
Sean,
interesting.
I think that's great. Those games, that G2, G3, I love. I love all the stuff, and I think you know, Gaming Works is you know, Paul Wilkinson's Apollo 13. I think that's better training ground, like, you know, combined with having the basic knowledge of the other stuff. But I think doing simulations is probably one of the best, any type of experiential learning.
Yeah,
and I think it's a really valid point you have there, Sean. With it's not that enough that you just have the right knowledge and right skills. You also need to have an open mind to actually figure out if there is other options and just following the protocol.
Yeah, yeah. You can get. I think you can get just as hurt in a major situation by everybody kind of strapped by indecision. And this is what I was thinking about. I'm not the person to be leading that kind of emergency because I know I would spend so much time analyzing that the building would burn to the ground before I'd made a decision. So it seems to me as I look at those pieces, we need something that's a clearly identified criteria for a major incident. So everybody in the room can instantly all shake their heads and go, yep, that's on fire. But then some simple findable plan for everyone, like Simone said, the red hats or the yellow hats, or where everybody knows where to find it, and it's just there. Like when Simone talked about the hotel room, I went, oh, I never look, but it's there. But then the part that we're almost talking about now is we need both a team of people who have the authority to be willing to swing the bat right or wrong, because they know they're willing to take the risks and have the practical experience. But then instead of identified people, you almost also need a list of identified tasks that are harmless. So these, you can take those people who you probably don't want making the decisions and go give that to them and say, here's your list of
running around.
Right. So you know, Daniel's the crisis management person. We know he has the authority to do this. He also knows that the bulk of, you know, background tasks are, you know, these 5 things. And so when he sees Sean running around with his hair on fire, he can grab me by the shirt and go, Sean, go do this right now. And then I can go, oh, okay, I'm helping. And it almost seems like that, I guess if I look at that model of things, would that fit in any kind of major incident? Would it fit for, you know, fires as well as financial? Or is there something that's different in financial than a fire that we need to think through?
I really enjoy movies for a good reason. You can sit back, still be part of the action, and sort of, you know, get into a movie without, maybe that's why I like the simulation games, without really getting hurt, I guess. Other old movies like Poseidon Adventure, there was no one in charge. The captain's dead, the crew's dead, or there's only one crew member. You know, what happens when the head does get chopped off? What happens when the seniors aren't there to direct?
That's a good point. Someone's got to step up, and that's where the whole plan that you have a team is great, but what if you don't have the team there? Then it becomes a problem.
You know, especially if, as you said there, if you have a fire drill and you enter, you're supposed to have an escape route, and then suddenly that is locked or whatever. Someone have to have, or as you say, the teacher fall and break her leg. Someone, of course, have to step up and act on that, and also have the kind of I don't know, to adapt to the situation as well, because and make additional decisions. And I mean, that's why I think simulation is also a great opportunity to maybe, even if it's not that real, it's still an opportunity to train. Okay, what would I do in this situation?
Yeah. Oh, you have to build in some flexibility. Absolutely. I think, yeah, it's interesting. I believe that emotional intelligence training can be a really good asset to anyone in any part of the organization. That self-awareness, first of all, and that leads to self-management. So, you know, they can understand when their pins are firing off. So, you know, for you, Sean, you sort of, you know, you can feel the sweat or the heart racing or the jitterbugs, or you know, you can feel the shoulder starting to twitch. You know, whatever it is that is your signal for you to go, I'm not enjoying this. But you've got to be aware of what those signals are first, then self-manage them. Know what you need to do to self-manage. But it's only after that you've been able to self-manage that you can then move into the social side of it, being able to then connect to the other and be more aware of what's going on around you.
That makes good sense.
You know, and then start participating, I guess. So I think emotional intelligence training is good for anyone.
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you need to do, because as you said, if you can get a number of steps to be more autonomous, then of course there will be more free space in your brain to do some additional judgment. And I think it's mostly important in the start. So whenever you start to handle the crisis, there is a clear advantage that, okay, now we have those very clear steps. Then what happens from then, we don't know. So we need to have some flexibility from that point on. But from the start, there should be like step 1, 2, and 3. These need to be very, I don't know, not flexible at all, I would say. I mean, we need to assign the persons and put those in, and we need to rely on that we complete those 3 steps. Because otherwise, I think...
Yeah, you've just reminded me of a question that I often ask in the Support Center Analyst course, when we talk about major incidents as part of their role being on the service desk, of course. And I usually say, okay, so if you've got a really small service desk team, you're the one that's got to open it up for the morning, like you're on for the first shift. You're the one that's got to take the phones off, night switch, fire up the servers, everything else, or whatever has to be done, to open up the phones ready for the customers. And you turn up and there's smoke coming out of the bottom of the building, or for some reason it looks like it's been broken into, or there's security issues. What is the very first step you take? And most of them kind of just look at you weird, as if to say, I know. And most of the responses I get are, oh, I'll go home. Let someone else deal with it. Or, I'll call my boss. And I say, and if they don't answer the phone, I just leave a message. And do you then try them again 5 minutes later if you haven't heard from them? Oh, no, that's their problem now. I made the call. And I'm just going, no, I can't believe. So this essence of people wanting to take responsibility, I think, is also an issue in some respects.
That's also very related to culture, I think. It's really, really depending on culture. I think, in general, if you go to countries that don't have so many inhabitants, I think there is a clear tendency that it's easier to be accountable, to take responsibility. But if you go to countries where you have a huge workforce, it's harder. I think
that's fascinating. So it's autonomy is a fact of culture in in the culture you grew up in your country.
I think so. I mean, I was talking to a friend of my dad who was actually from Belgium and moved to Sweden, working for a large car manufacturer, and he said that the thing that he was finding out when he was a manager for development team was that whenever we were sitting in a meeting and they said, and I pulled out the task list and started delegating tasks, people just went away and said nothing, and then came back and said it's done. He said I didn't need to remind them. I didn't need to pull out the status meetings and collect people and have daily stand-up calls, and because people just there was something and someone decided let's do this, and they just did it and took the responsibility to also deliver in time. So maybe there's also depending on the available workforce you have. I mean, historically.
That's super interesting.
It is, and I think you're right. It is culture, and talking about bringing new people in on culture too. There was a pre-flight briefing. This is many years ago. That there was a pilot that said, "If you hear me yell, eject, 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 the last 2 are going to be echoes." And someone said, "Why?" He said, "Because you'll be talking to yourself, and you'll be the pilot."
Made the call.
It's like, made the call. We're out of here. Do it now. So,
and I think we should end this podcast, Simone, with another flight quote. So it's actually one I think you pasted, Simone, from the Columbus Air Force Base, and it was 74. That was a while ago. But it says that a good landing is when you can walk away from the plane, but a great landing is when you can reuse the plane.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's a good summary of today's session. That, I mean, you can do your trainings, but you should also practice doing some simulations, and you should also try to learn so you can actually have more clear steps and have a more clear design on what you want to do for the next upcoming incident you have, because they will come.
Makes sense.
So again, I missed the last episode, so it was a great time to have you chatting with me, and I would like to say thank you from Gothenburg, and good night to people in Central European time at least.
And au revoir from La Motte-Fenelon in the south of France.
And I guess that leaves me on the American side to say see ya, and have a good afternoon.
Take care, guys.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.